I thought I'd have a look at some of my A4 Pacifics running around my layout. I've got quite a few. Here's the first one. It's a Bachmann A4 in the experimental BR blue. It's a little bit temperamental, it's not very powerful. Now, in contrast to the Bachmann A4, here is a Hornby Dublo A4, Golden Fleece, 2-rail. I think it was maybe 2-rail when it came out, I don't know. Obviously, I bought this second hand. In fact, I bought it in 2022, and it cost me about £35. And for what I paid for, I think I've got a really good model. It's the most powerful locomotive, I think, in my collection, probably. I haven't compared it with Cock of the North, the Hornby Railroad model, but this one is going to pull a 10-coach train today, which usually leads to derailments when you've got so many coaches on relatively tight curves. I should say one thing about the the Hornby Dublo model is it's quite noisy. And not particularly smooth when it starts off. As you will see, it copes with a 10-coach train pretty effortlessly. I dare say it could take more. I haven't tried it with more yet. And the power setting it's on is only about 35%. And it's giving a really good scale speed. Now I just want to see if I can give a good smooth stop and start in the station. That might be asking a bit too much for a 50, 60-year-old locomotive, I don't know. Okay, well that was a smooth, if noisy, stop. Let's see if I can get it to start a bit smoother than last time. Yeah, not bad. And it's left half its coaches behind, oh dear. That was an uncoupling fault. I think the reason for the uncoupling was the mix of Hornby Railroad, older style Hornby couplings, and there's also one replica Railways coach at the end, which has mainline style couplings. And we seem to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on this time, so 2 have come uncoupled again. This, to me, is one of the mysteries of model railways. A locomotive and its whole train can run perfectly for, say, 10 laps of your layout, and then suddenly does the same thing wrong over and over again. It's one of those things that mystifies me. Anyway, now let's just see. Golden Fleece heading off with a 10-coach train. Yeah, that's pretty smooth. I'm happy with that. Incidentally, the tender of the Hornby Dublo Golden Fleece is still equipped with its original Hornby Dublo style coupling. I didn't want to change it because for the purist, someone who might want to buy it in years to come, maybe if I decided to sell it, they probably would want the original coupling. So instead I adapted a replica Railways full brake and fitted a Dublo style coupling at one end. Other end is just a normal mainline coupling, which usually couples successfully to a typical Hornby standard tension lock coupling on the next train. As I say, though, I've mixed and matched couplings on this 10-coach train, so that probably explains why there's been a few spontaneous uncouplings at certain points. Next in my collection is Hornby Railroad Gadwall with TTS sound. It was my first TTS sound locomotive. I've only got a few. I'm happy with analogue for most of my locos, to be honest. And this one was a present from my father. It was one of the last presents he gave me before he died, so it's got a very special place in my heart, this one. And considering it's a railroad model, it's absolutely fantastic. And it'll be hauling 5 of the Gresley teaks, which are really beautiful coaches. They have their criticisms. Some people say the tumble home isn't quite right, the curvature of the sides, and also they do look a bit clean. The roofs of mine don't look clean. They've gathered dust over the years, so at least that's a bit of natural weathering, I guess. Okay, let's get her going. Although I like the Hornby Gresleys, I do find one other problem with them is what they call the kinematic couplings. They don't seem to work perfectly. Seem to be an okay idea in theory, but in practice they seem to cause more derailings, especially when they're under more tension. So the longer the train you have, the more tension you have those couplings on, the more likely they are to lock in place and cause a bogie to come off the track, which is a bit of a nuisance. But I've got five of them here, and that's easily enough to keep me happy. They do look beautiful, but they aren't perfect. Hey, but who needs perfection? Silver Fox came in a limited edition Silver Jubilee train pack Don't know how long ago. I bought mine second hand. It was DCC fitted, so I'm running it on DCC at the moment. The Loco is actually based more on the railroad model. I think it's got the old style body. It doesn't have extra handrails on the cab side, and the tender top is the old tender drive design of tender top, but it's loco drive, the engine. And it's got the silver Jubilee coaches, which Hornby basically just took the Stanier LMS coaches that they've made for a long time in the railroad range still, and they painted them in that nice white livery with a silver roof. And I bought these second hand. Someone else had cut off all the roof vents to make it look more like the air-conditioned silver Jubilee coaches. They'd also added skirts to the trains, and as you'll see when I move one into shot, they have articulated them, and so they are a bit more like the real thing. And I don't know if you can see there is the articulated bogie, and the skirts are just plastic card painted a good shade of grey. The bogies on these aren't the Gresley style bogies. I don't know why Hornby didn't just use the Gresley style bogies on them. Obviously the coaches aren't that realistic anyway, because they are a Stanier design, or roughly a Stanier design, and they have quite prominent ribbing on the roofs, which is nothing like the Silver Jubilee coaches themselves. But as you can't buy the Silver Jubilee coaches ready to run, and because these are rather beautiful, I've kept this model. I bought it all second hand, actually from America, the coaches, and they look rather grand, I think. Yeah, and there's also the restaurant car in the middle, which I'll show you. Yeah, so that is the restaurant triplet set, dining car set. The original had a first class coach, a sort of catering car in the middle, and a third class coach, but because these are based on the Stanier ones, they're all basically composites. But the restaurant car was based on, they look like they've adapted that from a Hornby Mark I composite coach. So it's not at all like the original, but the colour matches perfectly the rest of the coaches, and it's been nicely lined out. The skirting on that one has got a bit bent, and I'm going to have to straighten that out or replace it with some more plastic card. But it runs well and it looks smart, so I'm happy with the whole train. The last two locos to video on this video are a Bachmann A4 Guillemot in BR Green Lake Crest. It's a smooth enough runner, but it doesn't have a huge amount of power, and so I've only given it a 4-coach train. And going in the other direction is a Hornby A4 Super Detail Range Falcon, hauling a fairly long train in comparison, with my own take on the observation car. It's an old Triang DMU. Needs a bit of extra work on it still, but not bad. Given that these are A4s, I suppose I ought to give them a bit more juice. So they're running it closer to good scale speed now. Just to finish off, I thought I would show you the train that Falcon is pulling. As I said, it's a super detailed Hornby loco. It needs servicing because it's a bit noisy at the moment. I'll just slowly move it forward, and you can see the coaches behind it. That's a Kirk Gresley full brake, but only a 52-foot one, not the 61-foot one. Following that, a couple of mail coach articulated coaches from the Coronation and West Riding Limited kits, and another pair of articulated mail coach kits. And finally, the last one there is the DMU that I've sort of hashed together to try and make something that looks a bit like a observation car. And that train is running very jerkily at that slow speed, so that definitely needs a service. Although it is smoother at high speed. Finally, a view from the overbridge of the two trains running through the station.